What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and today we're going to be going over another fun mechanic, and that is breaking throws. So we are able to cancel a throw if our opponent is using a throw and we are using a throw before the throw has actually begun. So during the grab process, where we try to grapple our opponent, if we perform a throw, or go to perform a throw, we should cancel out, and neither one should perform the throw. For example, I have player 1 on the left, able to perform a throw by pressing their macro. You could also press both the light and the heavy, in this case together, to get that effect. Then I have player 2 who can also perform a throw, again with their macro, or you can use their light and heavy to perform the throw. Now this is the grab. Since no collision is occurring, no throw is occurring. However, if I go to my opponent and throw them, you'll see that they get thrown over and we flip sides. If the characters go to throw each other at the same time, they cancel out, they go into this grab break animation, what I call it, and no one throws the other. Even if I offset them a little bit, as long as the throw animation has not started, they're going to both go into this grab break animation, because at this point, we don't want the characters to be thrown. No one is thrown. So if you time it right, you can cancel an enemy's throw, or counter a throw, and that's what we're going to be covering today. Now this is it in the practice mode, so you can see the hitboxes and all, but we can go to the versus mode as well and make sure that everything looks good in there without all that extra junk on the screen, because sometimes you don't want to see that, right? So I can throw my opponent, try to throw each other, and we will go into this cancel. Just like this. Anyway, that's what we'll be covering today. Before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube membership and Patreon members and supporters. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I'm incredibly grateful. It is so incredibly fun to make this, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying. If you want to catch up to this entire series before you take a look at this episode, you can click this icon in the top right corner right here. That will bring you to the entire playlist of the fighting game tutorial series, so you can go over everything we've done, everything we've covered, and get you up to the point we're at now so that you can follow along with this episode. Alternatively, if you just care about the throw breaks, I would link you to this episode right here, which was the first episode of throws, which we're going to be building off that logic today, so it is important that you have that in your project if you want to copy this exactly. Otherwise, guys, we can go ahead and get started. So to begin today's episode, we are going to go into the code, and specifically we're going to go to our base character.h or our fighter template character.h. That's what I called mine. And in this character, we have a bunch of different enums, and one of the enums that we have is the attack state. And the attack state keeps track of if we're in our started, active, or recovery of our attack. I've added two new states to this. The grabs and the grapples are a little bit different than attacks. So if we are grabbing our opponent, I actually don't spawn a proximity box for the grabber for the throw windup, but I do for the regular attacks. And this is because I don't allow blocking of the grapples. The only way that you can block the grapple now is going to be through this throw break. It's the only counter to it currently. So I've added two new states, grab started and grab break. So grab started is the entire attempt of trying to grab your opponent to get ready for the throw or the grapple or whatever it is that we're calling it. And the grab break is when a grab collides with another grab attempt and they go into that animation where they break out of it and then they're going to return to idle. I debated including a third state in here, such as grab active. So you could essentially have a wind up for your grab and then when it was actually active. But I felt that that only complicated things, as we don't really need it with the current system. Feel free to add it if you're interested. You could always do more with it later, or remove it later if you end up deciding that you're no longer interested. Once you've added these two attack states, you'll want to close your engine, reload, make sure that you can access them in the blueprints. We're going to be using them in there today. So we can go back into the editor now, and we can take care of the animations first, because we kind of need to know the flow that we are setting up for our characters before we can implement all the logic. So let me give a quick rundown of what I have currently. So I have idle to this grappled throne animation. And this grappled throne animation is this. Once I've been grabbed, I am then thrown over the shoulder of this character. Right? So if I select this, I am thrown. This is my thrown animation. This is important because we need to know at what point we can no longer cancel a throw attempt. Right? If we're already at here, we should not be able to press the button to perform a throw and then cancel out of it. So do we want to do it at here, or is this too far? In my opinion, and with the animations I have, this is too far. At this point, I've already been grabbed and I'm beginning the throw. Now, you could use something like this anim notify stuck in throw. So you could add an anim notify to your graph or to your animation, and then make it so when you hit this anim notify in your anim BP graph, you could fill out that event and not allow any more actions from the player. Using that method, you could actually still cancel out of the throw prior to this point, which would give you a few more frames. This is if you're doing the grab and throw in one animation like I am here. But it's actually not required that you do that. I am not going to do it today. The alternative is the other throw method that I've shown, which is to have a grappled and a throw separate. So this would actually be my grappled animation, which right now I'm using my hit reaction animation because I don't have a separate animation for it. But you could use an animation like this to show I've been grappled. And then that automatically leads into the throw animation if it's not canceled out of. This would allow you to break up where you could cancel the throw, counter the throw, by only allowing it in the first animation of those two. I'm actually not going to do either of these today. I'm actually just going to make it to where if you have started the throw, you can't break out of it. So only during the windup can these throws be broken. But it is up to you. You do have that freedom, and you could allow for a few extra frames if you wanted to. It doesn't really change the process at all. You just have to use something like that notify that I was showing you earlier in the episode that is stuck in throw. The rest of the process will be exactly the same. Now that we've covered that, let's go and look at the animations for the one performing the throw, not the player being thrown. From here we have idle to start backward throw. Now start backward throw is actually the begin grab. Okay, it's called start backward throw because that's the animation I'm going into, but really this is the grab. So this only occurs when I've pressed the proper inputs to perform this command. This is a grab attempt. If I miss my grab, then I return to idle. And that's how we've set this up in the series from the very beginning. So we have this grab, and if we don't collide with the opponent's throw box, we cannot throw them, and thus we just go back to idle. Quick refresher on these as well. We have a command that we use, so we go from idle to this command. I'm going to get rid of the old logic we had in here. Basically, once we perform this command, we can go to this animation, the grab. Now, nothing's changed in here. I'm just refreshing your memory. And the start backward throw, which again is the grab, back to idle, is an automatic transition. There's nothing there. It's just if we have nowhere else to go, we automatically go back to idle. Okay, so we failed our grab and we return to idle. And we have end throw transition here to just reset our state back to idle. Again, all that's been covered already. However, if we collide, if we've landed the throw, which right now is just covered by a Boolean, then we go into the backward throw connect, which is this right here. And this is the actual throwing animation. This is us throwing the opponent over our head onto the ground on the other side. Okay. After that, we would go into a recovery and idle automatically. These were just parts that were required to make the animation look better. They didn't have any real logic tied to them. We now have a new state in here, which is the grab break state. And that is the animation that I was showing you earlier, where if two throws collide, we then go into this grab cancel or throw cancel, whatever you want to call it. And it's basically just going to break the throw, and they're both going to return to idle. So yes, that is the new animation that I've added. Let's set this state up. So you can right click anywhere in your graph and type add state. And then I typed in grab break for the name, but name it whatever you want. I have no events on the actual node itself. Going into the event, I'm playing my grab break animation that I have, and I'm making sure not to loop it. This only has 2 transitions total. It's got one going to it and one going back to idle. So we can only enter the grab break animation from the start backward throw. And the transition rule from start backward throw to grab break is very simple. We're just going to grab our character reference variable, drag off of that, get the attack state variable, and then drag off of that, do an equal enum to check against a specific attack state, and we want to check against our grab break state. If we enter the grab break state, that is when we can go into this animation. Now on here, I also have no transition events, no start transition, end transition, or interrupt. It's just a simple transition from one to the other. Nothing complicated about it. Now the grab break can also go back to idle, and it should do so automatically once the animation is done. The grab break is meant to kind of refresh and reset everyone, put them back on the same playing field. So we don't want them to be doing stuff while they're in this animation. So we're simply going to go from grab break to idle, and we're going to make this rule automatic rule based on sequence player and state. So basically we don't have a transition rule. It is empty in here. I do have an end throw transition at this point, and I put it on the end transition event. End throw transition, I mentioned this earlier in the episode because we've used it several times in the past for our throws. End throw transition is just there to reset our variables once the throw has completed. If you've been following the series, you will have seen this event a lot, so I'm not going to go over it all right now. But you can see that I allow the characters to move again once this is done. I reset the attack state back to none, which is the default, and the character state back to none. Character state is their movement, their jumping, that sort of thing. Then I reset any necessary values in here. These are mainly old, outdated values that I don't normally use, except for has landed throw. We are still currently using that, and can flip. We are also using that. We haven't gotten around to cleaning this all up entirely yet, but we will, don't worry. And lastly, I clear any remaining hitboxes so the throw hitboxes can be destroyed. So no changes to that event are required. But the reason I put it at the end transition event is because once we go from the grab break back to idle, we want to get rid of all of the states, and we want to delete the hitboxes that were destroyed in the process before this grab break occurred. At that point, we're done with the state machine. Now, this is really messy. I want to leave a quick note in here. In the very near future, I am going to be translating almost all of this, or perhaps all of it, to anim montages so that we can clean it up. I personally love the state machine, and I'm very happy with what we can do with it. But the anim montages are going to give us a few benefits, and we may want to use them to not deal with the ugliness of the graph. You can clean it up more than I have here, but it can still be very, very messy, as I have not even included all of the states to hopefully make it not as convoluted as possible. So anyway, be on the lookout for that, but don't stress. We are on the way to making this much cleaner, and we're going to control these animations through code. So we'll have full control over them. At this point, let's go back to the event graph, because we're going to need to update some of our anim notify events to do some additional logic for us. The main thing we need to do is figure out where we want to set our grab started attack state, right? We have this grab started attack state, but we need to manually set where this is at. In my opinion, the grab started should be set when the grab started animation triggers. So I have a started and a grab in here, and this is because this is where the animation starts. We weren't doing anything with this anim notify. This is where the throw hitbox is spawned, and we can use this one to clear hitboxes if necessary. This BT grab started. We had this anim notify here. I did not add this for this episode. This was added when we went over our throws initially. But we don't actually have any logic in here. So if you go into your anim BP, go into the event graph, you can search for this and see if you find it. So BT grab started is what it's called for me, and I have anim notify and event anim notify. We want to grab the event. Now, I actually had the event in here and it was just empty, but you may not have it in here. As long as you have this anim notify on your animation, you'll be able to grab it in your event graph. And once you have this event, we want to do something very, very simple. We just want to grab our character reference and set the attack state on it to be grab started, because that's what we are now. That end throw transition I was showing you earlier already covers resetting this back to none once the throw is finished, or once the grab break has finished. So we actually don't have to worry about it at that point. At this point, our attack state will be set correctly, and now we need to know what to do with it. We have a create throw hitbox function, and we set that up to spawn our throw hitbox and pass along all the details that we have. Now, I've added something in here that we'll be covering in a second. Nothing else has changed with this function, so you don't have to worry about changing anything over here. But at the very start of the function, we want to make sure that the attack state is not grab break. If it is grab break, we don't want to go through all this logic and spawn a hitbox. The only time we're going to be going into this function is when we're trying to create a throw hitbox. If this character is already in the grab break state, we don't want to create that hitbox. We're just going to cancel out, stay in the grab break, and then return to idle once that animation is finished. So we can skip all of this, saving on some performance, as well as just not creating these new actors and adding them to these arrays and things. So we can simply just block the entire process. Now, when you're playing in practice mode, you will see that if you do what I'm doing here, you will only spawn one throw hitbox if we are both throwing at the same time. So for example, if I come in here, we can see our hitboxes. The blue hitboxes are the throw boxes, the throwing hitboxes, whatever you want to say. These are the commands that will, if this hits the blue throw box surrounding the character, it will then throw the character. And so each character spawns their own when they do the animation. If I cancel both of these, you'll see only one hitbox is spawned. This is because one of these characters is having their hitbox spawn, and then they're being set into the throw break state, the grab break state, excuse me. And because of this, we are now ignoring all of this behavior. I think this is okay, because technically the character that pressed the throw first is the one that spawned the hitbox. The other one is just countering. They don't spawn a hitbox of their own. What this logic is doing is checking to make sure that the character's attack state is not in the grab break before doing this. So it's very simple. We grab our character reference, we grab our attack state, we type not equal or exclamation mark equal enum. Then we want to make sure we're not equal to grab break and plug this in. If we're not equal to it, then we're good to go. If we are equal to it, that will go into the false, which we're not going to do anything about. So at this point, we can clean this up and make it look nicer. So I'm just going to take everything on this side and move it over. Then I'm going to bring this in where I want to put it, and I'm going to put it right at the very front, right? So let's straighten this out, make sure this looks good, and we'll get it back to where it's at an appropriate distance. And probably that is good, right around there. And then I'm just going to move all my reroute nodes back to the very start here. Might be a little bit ugly at first. And something like that should do the trick. So, like I said, we're just blocking the rest of the logic in here from happening if we are currently under the grab break attack state. Now, once you have that in here, all we have to do is figure out where we want to set the grab break attack state. Because right now, we've only ever set it to grab started, and we checked against grab break, but we've never set it to grab break. The best place to do anything with this is in the hitbox actor BP, because that is currently where we are determining what to do when we have a collision with the thrown hitbox. So we go to our hitbox actor BP. This is where we spawn all of our actors. And I go to my check collision event. At the end of this event, we do a bunch of stuff to pass along all the hitbox details to the proper functions, such as the collide with proximity hitbox function or the take damage function. On top of that, I had the throw go to a separate set of logic, and the only thing it did was set has landed throw on the other player. So meaning, if this character was hit with a throw hitbox, the other player had landed their throw. Now, logically, that's correct. This is all we had in the throw section here. We only had other player has landed throw. So everything here has been added except for these two nodes. If it's a throw, we have a few new routes that we can go now because the throw is technically cancelable or counterable, and so we can't just assume that the player has landed a throw because we were hit by a throw hitbox. We can use this to determine if the character being hit by the hitbox. Okay, I know there's a lot of blue lines here, so let's scroll back for a second. This cast comes from the loop of the overlapping actors, so we're checking the character that is being hit by the throw hitbox. We're checking their attack state. So if the character that is attacked and collided with this throw hitbox is themselves in the grab started, that means they are also trying to perform a throw. At this point, we know that both characters are trying to perform a throw or a grapple, and thus we can trigger them both, send them both to the grab break attack state. So this one, this blue line that I've been using everywhere, is the character that is being hit by that hitbox. This other blue line is their opponent. This is the other player. So we can set both players to be in the grab break state. Now this will need to be upgraded for tag teams. So instead of using other player, we can make this a little bit better. If you plan to implement tag teams in your fighting game like we are, we actually want to use the owner of the hitbox, not just the other player, and saying that they have landed the throw. Now this was not a conversion that I had done previously, even for the standard throw, but we're going to do it now. So instead of using that other player, we can use the get owner here, which is the owner of this hitbox. That is the collision we're checking. What I would recommend here is having an owner of the hitbox. And we have the owner here, but we could keep a reference to the actual owner of the hitbox. And it'll be casted to our fighter template character. So if we go up to our event begin play in our hitbox actor BP, we can actually use the get owner node, which does work and is tracking the owner properly. We can cast it to our fighter template character, add it to the end of our begin play, and assuming this cast succeeds here, we can promote this to a variable. And we'll have a new variable here of a fighter template character, and I'm just going to say hitbox owner. Now, this is the owner casted to a fighter template character, so we don't have to continuously cast to this type when we do things with it later. You can now use this if you'd like in place of get owner. So where we use get owner, you can delete that and now drag in get hitbox owner and pass that in. If you'd like, you could check for validity before doing so, but it's not required that you do that here, as the owner is being set prior to this event being called in those anim bp create hitbox functions. So now we have our hitbox owner here, but we can actually do something fancier with this now. Instead of dragging off and having all these ugly nodes and using the other player, which again will only work with 2 players not in tag team, we can use our hitbox owner now. So I'm going to delete some of the stuff that you see here, and instead I'm going to plug in hitbox owner. Get hitbox owner. And now where we were doing has landed throw and setting that to true, I'm going to use hitbox owner instead of other player. From there, it's also really easy to clean things up. Where we were setting our attack states to grab break, we had the character being hit by the hitbox and setting that to grab break. That's all well and good. However, this other one is supposed to be the other player in the world. But again, that won't work for tag teams. We just need to know the owner of the hitbox, and that is the character that should be being set to the grab break state. So we want to use our hitbox owner here now. It looks cleaner too. Now, if the character is hit by a throw hitbox and their attack state is not grab started, this is going to be where we set our has landed throw to be true. We're going to set it for the hitbox owner, not for the other player. Again, this will make it work for tag teams, so that's pretty important that we do that. It is possible that hitboxes don't have owners at this point, or that their owners aren't valid. It's not always going to be valid because it may be set after it is spawned, and that is the case for a lot of our hitboxes. So what I would actually do is move this from the begin play, and instead put it in check collision, but at the start of the event. So I'm going to move everything over. And at the start of check collision, that is where we're going to do this logic. Now at this point, I was adding a node to set the attack state of this character that landed the throw back to none, but that's actually no longer necessary with the anim BP changes that we made, because we're going to be setting this to none when the end throw transition is fired. So I'm going to remove this now, and this is going to be my final result. So instead of using other player has landed throw when we collide with the throw hitbox, we've changed it to all of this logic now here. So we check for grab started, and if we are in grab started, we can assume both characters are trying to perform a throw. So we set the character being hit by the throw box to the grab break, as well as the owner of the initial throw hitbox to grab break. Otherwise, we just set the owner of the hitbox to have landed the throw. And at this point, you will be able to successfully perform throw breaks. This will allow you to cancel throws at any point when you're fighting with your opponent. And it gives you the ability to not just get punished by throws in this template, which has been the case up to this point. Anyway, guys, that is all I got for you today, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and I just really appreciate it. I want to give another shout out to my YouTube membership Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for everything. I'm really grateful and really excited to keep working on these videos for you guys. I'm glad you're enjoying them, and I am as well. If you had any issues with this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. It is completely free, and I would be happy to help you with any of the problems that you ran into. Anyway, guys, that's all I got, so thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.